and their Tfunos. What we'd like to do this week is do a short introduction and then actually give you some hands-on activities to do so that you can actually apply the book. A lot of times when we do these type of svarim, so they stay so abstract and you never really get the chance to actually see it happening, and it doesn't concretize what you've learned. So we're going to have just a few minutes of introduction, and then we'll be trying to work together on the Sefer. Okay, what I have here is a site that you may know about, but I just like you to just remind you that the site exists. It's called HebrewBooks.org. Why I am talking about it is because it has a very easy way to get the text of Shas. All you have to do is go to HebrewBooks.org and click on this Shas icon, and then you can pick over here what Gemara you'd like. It has the Gemara as the page. Just go down and pick the Gemara. We're going to do Baba Kama, for instance. And what's nice about it is, in the upper left-hand corner, I can turn this Gemara into text by just clicking this button. And now I have the text, not only the Gemara, but I have Rashi, and I have Tosfos, all digitized for me. Why do I need that? Because I can just go here and grab this text and copy it, and then go to my file and paste it in. Now once I have the text pasted in like this, I can operate with it very, very easily. And what I like to do is to parse the text, to break it up into its parts. So the first thing that I always do is just find the end of sentences. Like here we have a Gemara that says Arba Avos Nezikin. Very simply, I put an enter sign after the end of every sentence. Hashor Babov Amalav Hever, enter. Lo Hari Hashor Kahari Amave, enter. Whoops, there we go. Lo Hari Amave Kahari Hashor. Below Zebizeh Shesh Behem Ruach Kayim. Kahari Ha'esh She'ein Behem Ruach Kayim. Below Zebizeh Shedarken Leilech Lahazik. Kahari Abor She'ein Darken Leilech Lahazik. Atzad HaShavah Shebehen. She'darken Lahazik. Ushmir Samalecho. Ukeshehezek. Chav Hamazik. L'shalem Tishlumei Nezek U'Meitav Ha'aretz. That's the end of the Mishnah. Then what I do is I simply use the tab key, not the tab key, the indent key, and then I can break up my text into its parts. Okay, so here we have the Arba Avos Nezikin, then we have the Shor B'Mav and the Hever, this whole series here of Lo Hares. Okay, it can be moved over like that. Oops. And then we could, if the Mishnah has 2 or 3 parts, which it does, then all we have to do is add a little numbering here. That's number 1, and we could say this is the second part of the Mishnah, for instance, number 2, and this is the third part of the Mishnah, number 3. And then if the Mishnah starts taking form in a very structural way, and we can start to analyze the text and to see exactly what it's doing. So what I did already is took this first Mishnah, Baba Kama, and the Gemara as an example case. On the left, you'll see my little chart that I made with my little icons, which are basically the breakdown of the 7 functions of any debate. So as a reminder from last week, the Ramchal told us every sugya in the Gemara, just going to move that over here, get out of the way, every sugya in the Gemara is one of these 7, is doing one of these 7 functions. It's either a memra, a statement, or it's a sheila, a question with its tshuva, which must follow, or it's a kasha, difficulty, or it's a solution to that difficulty. Or the Gemara is bringing a raya, proof to a statement, or steer, it's knocking a statement out by destroying the statement, showing that it's wrong. And then the Ramchal, and that's the work we did last week, gave us really just a very few subcategories. He said that the memra, for instance, has the Shmuel, which is an original statement, the Perish, which had 4 parts, which we said were the Perish Meruvach, which is a Perish which fits very nicely into the words, a Perish Dochel, which fits in the words, but not so nicely. We had to move a few things around in order to say that that was the explanation of the words. Then we had the Akimta, which leaves all the words in place, but it says it's talking about a special circumstance. So that was the division of Perish. Then he said there was Diyukim, and as we mentioned last week, the body of Derech Tfunos is to talk about the structure of language, statements, inferences, syllogisms. That's going to be the foundation that all these elements of debate are based upon. But we decided that what we're going to do is first give a general overview of the functions, and then we'll go back and we'll learn more specifically all the parts of the foundations of speech. So Diyukim, for instance, he has a whole chapter on Diyukim inferences, but we can use our simple knowledge of a Diyuk, an inference, and see how that applies in a real life example. Then there's Haggadah, which means that the original person is not speaking, but someone is speaking in the original person's name. In Sheila, he broke it into 2 parts. The simple Sheila, which asks for information, and the Aboye, which is a 2-sided Sheila. We mentioned last week also, someone asked, does it have to be 2 sides? It can be more than that. I spoke to Rabbi Shua Cohen. He said there's places in Shas that even have 4-sided questions. Okay, so that's the Iboye. To a response to the Sheila is going to be the Tshuva, and the Iboye is the Peshitus because it decides which one of the various possibilities is the one that's correct. Then we said that there's the difficulty, which he broke into the Pircha, which is stylistic difficulties, which we'll run into in our example here, and the Rumia, which is a contradiction between 2 Pesukim or 2 statements. And then the Tiyufta he does not explain, unfortunately, so we're just going to leave it here. And I could use other explanations found in Shas, but the Ramchal is very careful to define his terms, and he does not use, in his terms, necessarily the terms that Shas is using. So we have to be very careful in trying to import other information from him. So we'll leave that at this point. Now, the issue is a direct answer to the Kusha. It resolves the problem. The Shinui is a answer which the person who gives the answer might not necessarily hold it's true, but it's enough to remove the power of the difficulty. Then we said there's the proof, which is a direct proof, and the siyata, which means someone else said what you said, even though it doesn't have the power of a direct proof from a pasuk. And again, these categories will have to be explained in more detail as we go through the book. The stira, which is the nullification of a statement, and the chiyah, which removes the hechrach of the statement. Okay, that's basically the categories that we learned last week. But now we're going to have fun. We're going to actually try to apply that to this first Mishnah and Gemara in Bava Kama. Okay, now this part of the class, I'd like to ask you to participate, okay, and tell me what you think. And by the way, you should know that statements in the Gemara have machlokas rishonim sometimes. Some people say it's just a simple statement. Some people say this is a question. So it's not always as simple to identify what a statement is in the Gemara as we would like to have it. But generally, as you read the Gemara, you should be able to determine what the Gemara is doing at any stage by using these simple breakdowns of the Ramchal. Okay, so let's start.
Okay.
Okay, the first statement of the Gemara is Arba Avas Nezikin. Okay, that means that there's 4 principal categories of damages. So, Rabbi, what type of the function, functionally, what is that doing?
Right. I think that would be a shmua.
That's correct. So what I do here is I click on Shmua, I do Control-C, and I go over to Shmua and I do Control-V. There we go. By the way, on the site, I put up a little demonstration of this, so you can get to it by going to KolTorah.com/reason, R-E-A-S-O-N, or if you can contact me or Ari, we can also send you a little copy of it. But I'm using Word very simply, 2 documents opened, one showing the functions on the right, the other one showing the Gemara, and I'm going to cut and paste from one to the next. Okay, very good. So we had a Shmua. It's an original statement of the Gemara. What is Hashor, Habor, V'Hamava, V'Hever?
I would think that would be a parish then of the shmua.
Excellent. Excellent. And we'll call it a parish merubach because it really doesn't disturb any of the words in Arbavas Nezika. It doesn't, it, for instance, doesn't say that, it doesn't give 3 of them, so it fits very nicely into the words.
Right.
Okay. Now, we'll just put that over here. Whether this is 1 statement or 2, by the way, is a problem in Tosfos, because Tosfos says normally when we say Arbavas Nezikin, like say we say Arba Rosh Hashanah Hain, usually we have the word Hain to denote the end of the statement. Here we don't have it. So Tosfos is involved in that problem. If this is 1 statement or 2, and in one of his possibilities is it's 1 long statement, and it's really only talking about the Arbavas Nezik and the short Bor Mav and Hever, and it's not having 2 statements. But let's leave that alone. I just bring it up to show you that these labelings that we do is sometimes the very machlokas for shonim. Okay, good. Let's go to the next statement. And the next statement says, Lo hari hashor kahari hamava. The shor is not like the mava. The mava is a machlokis between Rav and Shmuel in the Gemara. What does mava mean? It either means, according to Shmuel, Shane, or it means man, according to Rav. But that doesn't interest us at this moment, whatever mava is, Shane or Adam. But what is lo hari hashor kahari hamava? What type of
right, so let's analyze what the statement is saying. The statement is saying that it's telling you something about Shar and Mava by comparing them to each other. So it's really going back on we had a statement before, the Parish Merubach on the Shar Bar Mav and Heron is coming to explain that. So this would also be a Parish. Now, it would probably be a Parish, I don't know if it would be a Parish, it could be a Parish Merubach also. Or, I don't know, that's, right?
Yeah, okay. So now, if you looked at it, as you said, just in face value, you'd say, yes, this is a parish of the 4 Avos, and it's going to tell us that the shore is not like the Mava. However, when we delve into this a little deeply, if we look at the Gemara has a problem with the statement. It says, what is it talking about, Maka Omar? And it answers, this is actually a teretz to an unstated kasha. A teretz to an unstated kasha. The kasha is really lichtov chada. Why does the Torah write 4 different types of avot? Let's have 1 av, and everything else will be a tolda, a derivative. That's the Gemara explains, is the kasha of the Mishnah. In order to solve that problem, the Mishnah is telling us it couldn't write 1 av and make everything a derivative because the shor is not like the mava, and the mava is not like the shor. Okay, so that means when we're going to delve into this sefer a little deeply, he's going to explain to us what are hekashim. The correct English word is called syllogism, but the way we make extend laws in the Chumash, one of the ways we do it is through a binyan av. That means the Torah talks about a classical case, and that classical case now becomes a the rule for a whole bunch of other cases. Now, how do you go from a general case, like, excuse me, from a particular case to and extend it to other cases? Well, you say that there is a similar quality between the case. For instance, let's say this is talking about Shane. Okay, Shane has Hano Lahazik. Okay, so the Gemara says the tolda is tinfa peris la'anasan, that an animal, let's say, rolls in fruit to get some tips off his back. Okay, so he's getting pleasure, he's doing damage. That's a tolda. So the way that we take the specific case of Shane, we say it doesn't mean just an animal eating other people's produce, but it represents any time an animal gets some sort of pleasure and does subsequent damage, you're obligated to pay. So with that quality, we're able to extend it to the case of tinfaperos when he rolls around the fruit. So we're going to delve more into those structural, we're going to analyze those structural relationships and how to go from a product, particularly here, and make it into a general through opinion of. But here the Gemara points out that really there's a contradiction of terms. To have four general principles doesn't seem necessary here. Really, we should have one general principle and everything else should be a derivative. So it has to explain why we have four different ones, and it explains because you really, if you just had shor, you couldn't learn Mava from it. You would say that it's more chumrah than Mava. It has qualities like kavan lahazik, which Mava doesn't have, and maybe Mava would be putter. Okay. However, what we wanted to just demonstrate here is that sometimes a statement looks like a parish, exactly as what you said. And when we analyze it deeply, through the eyes of the Gemara in this case, we'll see that really there's an unstated kasha here. Now, that always used to, some of my students it always used to bother, but a lot of the Gemara is unstated. It's an expert text, and a lot of times you have to fill out the blanks. Baruch Hashem, we're going to have help by the Gemara itself, by the Rishonim, but it's one of the skills that has to be mastered, which is recognizing when there's a gap that has to be filled, and then filling it in yourself, and then looking at the Meforshim and seeing if they filled it in like you filled it in. That's part of the game. Okay, so this actually, according to the Gemara, is not a parish at all. This actually is a teretz. Okay, it's a yishuv to a kasha. Okay, the kasha is liftov chada. Why don't you just write one, and I can derive the other one from it. And it's saying, no, it's not true. I could not derive shor from Mava. If I only had shor, I would say shor is much more chumrah, much more strict. Mava is much weaker, and therefore I couldn't do it. So let me flip it around the other way. Maybe if I had Mava, I could learn shor. No, because shor has its own special qualities, like Hano Lahazik, and that maybe would be greater than the qualities in shor. So that's why the Torah had to write.
Right, so we have to back up then and understand what the unwritten statement is. Is it a kasha or is it a shaila? So you said simply that it's a kasha because then they're trying to, I guess, make a pircha on the statement that there were four avos nezikin, and the pircha that they're making on the four avos nezikin is from a svara by saying that there's no reason for it to be four, let it just be one, so therefore your statement is untrue.
Excellent. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you very much. That was beautiful. That's exactly right on target. Okay. Let's go to the next. Let's go to Gimel now. Now it says v'lo zeh v'zeh sheyesh ben ruach hayim. The shore. The Shmuel holds that now V'shein says shore is Karen. I'm sorry. It's at the end of the Gemara. It's going to say it's regel. So let's say it's regel and Shane. So both of these have the quality that they come from living things. So lo zeh v'zeh sheyesh ben ruach hayim kaharya eish she'ein bo ruach hayim. These two things are not like the eish that does not have the quality of being alive. Again, unstated kasha. Okay, And the Gemara says, wait a minute, okay, very good. If I only had Mava, I could not learn Shor. If I only Shor and Mava. But what happens if I had Shor and Mava together? Maybe if I had Shor and Mava, then I could learn the other Avos from it. What is it? Not maybe, it should. I should be able to. So now it's saying no, it's Mataretz, that's not true. I really need Aish also. Because if I had Shor and Mava, I would say Shor and Mava has the common quality of what? They're living things. But Aish is inanimate. Maybe I would be Potter. So that's why the Torah had to write Aish. Okay? Vaita. Now, in Dalit, it's interesting, the Gemara doesn't explain this, but it's obvious because they explained the first two, didn't have to. Lo zeh v'zeh shiddak and leilech lahasik. So now we have the Shor, the Mava, and the Aish. Let those three be written, and let me learn more from it. Okay, that's the kasha. Unstated, of course. What's the teretz? No. If I had Mava, if I had Shor, Mava, and Aish, I would say they're much more chomer than Bor, because Bor does not move, it's motionless. So maybe you're only chayav on things that move and not motionless things, and therefore that's why the Bor also had to be included and could not be derived from the three, from the Shor, the Mava, and the Aish. Okay? So there we go. Those were all Terutzim to Pircha and Svara, as you said very nicely. And now we're ready for statement number 3. Okay, Ari, you're doing so well. Let's keep going. Hatzara Shava Shavahen. Now, what is Hatzara Shava Shavahen?
So
do you know what I mean?
So we have to go back to the Gemara for this. Right?
Okay.
That the Tzara Shava is saying what they all have that are common.
Very good.
And I don't remember the Gemara. I didn't get a chance to review it, but I think the Gemara says that it's all common, because then you can learn out certain things from the what's common amongst all of them.
Very good, very good, very good. There's a common quality that all 4 of them do have, and through that common quality we'll be able to derive other cases besides the ones mentioned, which we have pesukim for. What are the common qualities? Shidach and lahazik, ushmirsan alecha, ukeshahezik, chavamazik, l'shalom tishlomei nezik, v'mei tava aretz. So there's the tzara shava shevehen, which is a shmuel. Yeah? Or no, excuse me, you'd be right. At this point it is a parish, correct?
It's
explaining that these 4 things have a common quality. What do you think, Ari?
Right. I would agree with that.
Okay. So it's a parish. Okay. Let's just mark that off as a parish. Okay. And the fact that it's dark in Lahasik Shmir and Alecha is a parish of the Tzara Shava Shavahen, right?
Right.
So that's just going to be a parish, but now this is going out to be the full. It's going to be a parish. What does it mean, Tzara Shava Shavahen? Fantastic. Okay, so that's our original setup. Let's look now at the Gemara, okay, and see if we can do the same thing. Of course, the Gemara is going to be a little more complex because it has running arguments. Now, what I do here, I sort of gave away certain things, but I don't really matter. Because what I try to do in my teaching of this Gemara in reality is, or any Gemara really, I try to break things down into the smallest groups. So what I do is I really have, I mark things black, which is the color, the original color, of course, and then reds and greens. Reds means you either, a red is really, if you have a question, it's red. If you have a kasha, it's red. And if you have a spear, it's red. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, there's certain things as aggressive and non-aggressive questions. Shaylas are non-aggressive. They don't try to destroy what's being said. They just try to fill in the blanks and extract information that's not clear or is unstated from a statement. Kashas really do try to attack a statement, but not to disprove it, but to explain it through showing that the the statement cannot be understood in its simple meaning because it contradicts. The stira, on the other hand, is a red because it's totally denying the statement. The statement can't exist in light of that stira. Greens represent solutions. So you have solutions to questions which, as we said, are the chuvas and the peshitas. You have solutions to kashas, the yishuv and the shinus. And then you have proofs. Now, proof is not a solution to a problem per se, but it is a solution to a question of manolan. How do you know this is true? So that's basically what I tried to do in the color schemes, keep it as few as possible. In the old days, people used to take magic markers and they would mark up the Gemaras and everything and have little symbols. But nowadays, since we have all this stuff digitally available, it's quite easy to just change the color, by pressing a button. Okay, all this to get the clear setup of the Gemara. Once we get the Gemara clear, then we're ready to investigate the Gemara to see if it flows properly, if the questions really answer if the answers really answer the questions, if the resolutions really solve the kasha, then we can investigate the whole world of the Rishonim, the Achronim, but at least the Gemara is clear. And this is something that should be done really with everyone, with everything that you study. It's really supposed to go on the head, but we don't hold information that well. Some people do naturally, they're virtuosos, and they hold everything very easily in the head. Other people hold things in the head but not accurately. And by doing this method, you're able to very clearly identify the parts of the Gemara, and then you can begin, after proper observation, to say intelligent things about what's going on in the Gemara. Okay? So here's the Gemara itself. The Gemara, by the way, does not start with the words Arba, Avos, and Zigan. I grade that out. The beginning is always jumps right in the middle. But it is, the Gemara's first comment is really on Arba, Avos, and Zigan, even though we don't have it printed there. Okay. The Gemara says like this, Midikatani Avos Miklal Ve'ikatolos. From the fact that the Mishnah used the term Avos, we know that they are tolos. So which one of the functions of the Ramchal is this demonstrating?
Well, I'm trying to decide if it fits into diak or not. I'm looking back and trying to find it in my Derech Tvunos. But it's really a statement based on diak of the Mishnah.
Excellent.
So I was saying that there's an inference.
100%. This is a pure inference. As I said in the Rambam, we're going to learn all the different types of inferences, the mukhrach ones, the built-in mukhrach ones. But this is a clear inference. What is it based on? It's based on language. If I use the term father, that's called a milah yachasi. It's a word of relationship. Okay? It automatically presumes what when I say father?
A father means that he has a child.
Exactly. It does not mean he has a wife. Of course, right. He has a wife, but if I wanted to say husband, then husband is the right word to associate with the word wife. But once you use the word father, father can only have a child. Okay? So the Mishnah says that there's Arba Avos Nazik. There's 4 fathers, or we say principal canonical words. So once there's an Av, the Gemara makes the deal. I'm sorry, I should have put that the next slide. The Gemara makes the deal. If the inference, look, since we're talking about Avos, they must be tolos. They have to be derivatives. You can't talk about an Av without a child. Correct? Classic deal. Correct. From the Lashon of Mishnah. Okay. So now we have Tolosayim Kiyotzi Behen, Olav Kiyotzi Behen. Functionally, what is it doing now with the Gemara?
So it's really a shaila. Or it's a bite. It would be an biting, really.
100%. It's a shaila, but it's an iboye. Why is it an iboye?
Because it has 2 sides, Kiyotzi Behen and Olav Kiyotzi Behen.
Exactly. 100%. Now, there's 2 types of the boys you should know. There's one that's Hain V'Lav, like this one. It's either Kiyotzi Behen or Lav Kiyotzi Behen. Then there's the boys of X and Y, of possibilities. Do we follow this, like you said in the Ramchal? Do you follow the woman's according to when she was married or now? So those are two types of Iboyes. And we said also very nicely that it can be more than two sides. But okay, this is a classical Iboye. Since first Diuk and then an Iboye, are these told us like the Avs and not? Very good.
So why did you make it in red?
Because it's a question.
Oh, okay. But it's not a challenge. It's really a question.
That's why. Exactly. I wanted to make things simple. The reason why I do it in red is because although it's not a challenge, it does request information. Okay, that's a little bit. Again, my system, I don't say is absolute, but the reason why I do it is because there's what I say. There's reds and greens. There's pausing questions. Some of them aggressive and not. This one is a non-aggressive pausing question, right? What I mean non-aggressive, it's not trying to attack the Mishnah. It's trying to attack information. The reason why I use red because red means that we had to pause here, correct? That's all. Red doesn't mean a kasha, it just means a pause. It can mean a kasha too. You with me? Okay. What? You with me on that?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, great. So here's a pause. Here's a question. Now, the reason why this is a good question, well, first of all, okay, there's another, I didn't even mention the other question. The other question, there's a question before this question, which is that the Mishnah never describes what the Toldos are, okay? But the Gemara is on step 2 over here, and it'll go back to step 1, but it's always very good to realize what stage you're in. A lot of times you get lost because the Gemara is presuming, it didn't even tell you what the Toldos are, and she's already asking you if they're like the Avs or not. So we're going to see the Gemara is going to backstep, but this is another reason why people sometimes get confused because they're on a level 3 problem when level 2 problem doesn't solve. Okay, but this is a very simple problem, l'chara. Are the Toldos Kiyotzim or not? So here we have a statement. Gabi Shabbos Tanan. Avos Malachos Arba'im Chaser Echas. Avos Mikla Be'ikad Toldos. Toldosayim Kiyotzi Behen. Okay. Loshna Chatos. Loshna. Loshna Av Chatos. Loshna Toldos Chatos. Loshna Av Skila. Loshna Toldos Skila. Stop. Okay, so in Shabbos, we have it taught in the Mishnah that the principal categories of doing work on Shabbos are 40 less 1, and since we have Avos, we know that there are Toldos, and the Toldos are Kiyotzi Behen. The Toldos happen to be exactly like the Av, meaning they have the same din. Whether a person does a Chatos, the Av Chatos, it means Chatos is always B'shogeg, so if he breaks the Av and he has to bring a Chatos, or he breaks the Tolda B'shogeg, he still has to bring the same Chatos. And the same thing if he breaks the Av, he is Chayiv Skila, and if he breaks the Tolda, he's also Chayiv Skila. Okay, but now let's analyze this text according to the Ramchal. Okay? Gabe Shabbos Tanan. What is this little section doing here?
Well, the question is how far down do you want to break it up? Because really the whole section is coming as a pshitus on the she'ela of Toldos Sim Kiyetzibah and Lav Kiyetzibah.
Now that's interesting, but the Gemara did not ask the question about Shabbos Mefarish. Okay. In other words, the Gemara's original question was really about the Arba Avos. So you're saying right now what the Gemara has a hidden question, which is, are the Toldos the same or not in the case of Shabbos, right?
Well,
another hidden question.
It's not really a hidden question. It's just bringing a similarity. The purpose is to answer the question. In order to answer the question, we're going to bring another instance of Avos and Toldos and describe something that is clear by Shabbos, which is obviously are like Toldos, and therefore over here too, Avos are like Toldos. So
well, how is that going to help us solve our problem? Our problem is in Ezekiel and Shabbos.
How is that? Because it's going to, so in this particular, right, so we don't have a Shitas yet. Okay, so then what do we do with this? We could put it, and to break it down, to say that it's just a shmua is really not what the well, if it has to fit into one of these, I guess it will be a shmua then.
Let's go a little further. But you see, by asking you these questions, by applying the Ramchal's categories here of debate, it's forcing us to clarify the Gemara.
Right.
And that's a very important tool, a very important tool. Let me just finish this little section. Maybe it'll help us out a little in the question. The question here is, what is this whole section doing? So I'm going to read the next part, and then maybe that'll help us, okay? Gabe tumos, tanan. In the case of tuma, impurity, it was taught in the Mishnah. Avos, hatumot, hasheretz, v'shichvat zera. It says that the av tuma is the sheretz, the creepy crawling things, and the zera. And also tumas mace, and a dead person. Told us saying, lav ki yotzi behen. There, the tolas are not like the av. Why? The ilu mitama odom bekelim. If a person touches a dead body, so then that dead body has the ability to matama another man or kelim. The ilu tolda, but the person who touched the dead body is a tolda, is ochlim umashkin matama odom bekelim. No matama. They are a mitzvah less, and they can man's matama ochlim food and drink, but not another man. So we see there we have a step down in the ability of the tolda to be like the av. It's actually one step less. For instance, when you there, the situation is simply when you light a match, there's heat in the match, then you put a metal bar over the match. That heat from the fire goes into the metal bar, but the metal bar is a tolda because it's a derivative of the heat of the match, but it doesn't have the same qualities. It has a little less quality than the original fire itself. Okay, it has some of the qualities. It's very hot, but it still may not be able to ignite other things. So it's a less degree. Okay, now the Gemara asks, okay, in our case of Nezikin, which way does it go? Does it follow the classic Shabbos scenario, or does it follow the classic Tumas scenario? The Shabbos scenario, the Toldos are exactly like the Avos. In the Tumas scenario, they're madrega down. So when it comes to our case of Nezikin, how does it go? So that's the little keter. So I just thought it would be maybe shed more light if at least we had the both sides. Notice that I call this a aleph and I call this bet. Another cute thing you can do if you're teaching, sometimes I do it, is I put arrows in and I show that both these things are related to this question. But okay, let's think again. So we had a iboye about Nezikin. We want to know that they told us are they like the odds and not, that they have the same din, the same halacha. We brought Shabbos and we brought Tumah. Now I'll ask you again, in light of understanding the whole little section, what do you think the Gemara is doing by bringing Shabbos and Tumah?
Okay, so what they're doing is the Gemara is bringing two examples of Avos and Toldos. One of them, the Avos are like the Toldos. One of them, the Avos are not like the Toldos. So, although end ultimate goal is to answer the question of Tolasen Kietzben Alav Kietzben. At this point, the Gemara is just bringing information in order for us to show us the concept of Ovis and Tolos. So then it would have to be a Shmua. Because you have one Shmua, next Shmua, and then go back to the question of Hachamai, which is really the question of Tolasen Kietzben Alav Kietzben, because these statements are not answering the question as of yet. So you can't call it a Pshitus, because we don't know the answer yet.
That's correct. It's definitely not a Peshitas. But what about a parish?
Oh, a parish. Well, it's not being Mefarish anything.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't Mefarish. There's a pirish. Let's see, how does he say pirish again? That it's being Mefarish a Maimer. Now, the Maimer that
by the way, it doesn't have to be a Maimer. I also set that up that way in my little chart. It doesn't always have to be Mefarish a Maimer. It normally does, but it doesn't have to be, like in this case.
Well, the language of the Ramchal, the pirish is being Mefarish Echad Me'aksuva Amina Ma'amarim.
Right. Now here it doesn't have to be straight Ma'amar. For instance, here I would suggest that this is explaining the Iboye. What do you mean Tolasen?
Oh, okay.
It's not, yeah. Here we see that it's actually explaining what the two sides are. Every Iboye has two sides, but who says they're legitimate?
So instead of associating it with a terrace, like I was saying, you're saying it's part of the question. Right? Therefore, it's a pirish.
I'm saying it's a parish on the question.
On the question, okay.
Mm-hmm. That's what I would say. It's explaining the two sides of the question, and it's doing a lot more by defining the two sides of the question the way it does. We'll now have we'll have cases now as a yardstick to judge our Nezikin from, okay? So there's a lot, this explanation of the question also defines what it means that it told us Lav Kiyotzben or not, if you're with me.
So if you look back at the language of the Ramchal, when he talks about, so I think the case that he brings is exactly this case, because he says, Derech Mashal, Rav Yishmael Levi, Mativan Shal Tevle Shachrin, and then the Gemara says, Yeshuachim Ka'achachikar, Mativan Barba'in Sa, Efshe B'Tisha Kavi.
Beautiful. Excellent.
So right, he's explaining what Rav Yishmael Levi is saying in the question of Mativan. He's explaining better his question. So you're saying...
It's Mefarish's question, right?
This is Mefarish's question.
Right. Beautiful. Very good. Very good. I'm very happy that you brought that up. That's excellent. Yeah, so this is actually a parish of the two sides of this question. Okay? Now, internally, by the way, the Ramchal is going to mention a little later on that you can have combinations of these functions. In other words, I could have what's called a kusha mugedes, for instance. I can have a Haggadah that someone is explaining a kasha that the Tana had. So it's a Haggadah because it's not the Tana itself explaining himself. It's an Amara, for instance, but he's not just simply explaining what the other person is not saying what the other person is saying. He's saying what this other person would have asked as a kasha. So we can have now combinations also of these things. Okay, so here in our little, this overall we said that this is really a parish of the two sides. Okay, and it doesn't seem to be dochek. We could say it's merubach, but I will bring up here now that some people will say this question is very, very dochek. Again, I'm zooming in to the actual content just to get you a feeling of how by using these labels we're going to get more involved in the actual issues. It's not just simply labeling, it's really focusing in on the issues and then clarifying. For instance, the Russ says, I don't know what you're talking about. You can't understand the Gemara. Because whenever you have toldos are drawn by dimion, by comparison. So you either are like the Av, you're not like the Av. If you're like the Av, so then you, of course, have the same halacha as the Av. If you're not like the Av, then you have nothing to do with the Av. So you either, let's say, Nezikin, you have to pay for damages, right? So if you're like the Av, if you're told, if you're told of meaning that you have the same quality as the Av, it's obvious that you have to pay for damages. And if you're not, then you don't have to. So he doesn't understand the question. He has a kasha on the question. Okay, he says that this Tilma aspect, the second one B, really is very dochek. There's no reason to say that in Svara, again, that Nezikin is the Tuma, it runs like the Tuma class of Toldos. It's not a, as I said, if you want to look at the Tuma as a derivative in the sense of its Sibum Mesulav, you have the heat from the fire going into the metal. Now it's of a lesser degree. Well, there's no reason to say that when we're trying to match a case with a given taste. That's his kashi. He says that's very dochik to say that Tuma is even on the floor here. Rashi, the people have been dying. And Rashi over there on the other side of the page, yes, you can have a tolda and not pay. Another, the Achronim start going crazy. What, have a tolda and you don't pay? Yeah, so they say there's such things as Easter. You can have an Easter that you did damage to someone. Money. Okay, that's again projecting us in lower levels and deeper levels of the problem. But simply zooming out again, the Gemara is mafarish its question, and it says on one side we have the classic case of Shabbos, where all the Toldos are like the Av, and the other case there of a lower degree. Let's now go inside what the Gemara brought. The Gemara says Gabi Shabbos Tanan. Okay, that's a parish, but that's also, when you say Tanan, that's always an indication of what?
So Tanan would be a...
Which one of those things? When I say Avos Malachas, when I say Avos Malachas Arben Chasa Echas, what is that statement? Of the what function does it serve?
Avos Malachas Achas. So that is telling you that there are 39 Avos Malachas.
Right.
That's a statement. That's a shmua.
100%. Excellent. No hidden tricks here. Very, very simple. Very straightforward. It's a straight shmua, right? Okay. Right. The Gemara then says, Avos Miklal Toldos. What is that?
That's a diuk.
Exactly. That's a diuk. Okay. Question on the floor here is, who made this diuk? It's definitely not the shmua. So who made it? But the Gemara made it. Okay? Now, here we have told the same kiyotzi behen. What is that?
So that's where we said Avos Mechal because...
Forget about my code.
Right. So we said Avos Mechal because Toldos. So now we're going to... this is a pirush on the Avos Mechal because Toldos.
No?
Or really, well, let's go back. There's really not an, I think, question possibly.
Excuse me?
There's Avos Mechal because Toldos.
Right. That was a diuk. So that a diuk is a member. It's a statement.
Right.
With it,
right.
By
now we have information. We have information from the fact that the Avos are, that there's such thing as Toldos. So now the Gemara would probably want to know what are Toldos.
Right. Now, it's very interesting. The Gemara doesn't say, the Gemara does not bring up the Yiboye, first of all. Not what are the Toldos, I'm sorry. You said what are the Toldos, that's true. But the Gemara does not bring up the problem here, are the Toldos saying Kiyotzibo or not, correct?
Right.
What does it say? It says Toldos saying Kiyotzibo.
So it's just giving you the answer without asking the question.
Exactly. There's a hidden question here, right? There's a hidden question. The question is, are the Toldos saying Kiyotzibo or not? I don't know. We only know that there's the text over there doesn't tell us about whether the Toldos, doesn't even say what the Toldos are. It doesn't even tell us if they're Kiyotzibo or not. So the Gemara now is telling us, is giving us a peshitus to that hidden question. Okay. Now you see why learning Gemara is not so simple.
Right.
As I mentioned, I mean, I had a person who's a very, very intelligent guy, and he said, I think that always stops me is what's not written. Well, can't they say everything out? And the answer is the Gemara is called an expert text, and people on expert level speak shorthand. So, and you have to get the chap, and you have to. But by doing this, it forces you to say, hey, wait a minute, what is this? And fill in the blanks. Okay. So here the Gemara gives us the answer. It says, told the same kiyotzi behen, and it says, lo shna av chatos, lo shna toldos chatos, lo shna av skila, lo shna toldos skila. What is that?
So that's a pirush.
It's a pirush.
Well, it's either going to be part of the pshitus, a continuation of the pshitus, but you can.
Well, it's not. It's not. Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you mean? The original pshitus were out of. Okay.
I think we broke it down and we said that Toldos and Yesudan is the pshitus, and now the Gemara is explaining the pshitus.
So you would say it's a parish.
Right.
Right? Not bad. I was thinking maybe, yeah, and it's open to the floor. I was thinking maybe it's a proof. Maybe it's a proof that the Torah says it or not, because we see that there's loshna. But maybe it's a pirush, like you're saying. I'll leave it open. I mean, I'm not saying it muchlat. It's an interesting move here. The Gemara says, loshna ad chatos, loshna toldos chatos. What is that? It's a pirush to show you that it's kiyotzi behen, very possibly, or it's trying to prove the fact that they're kiyotzi behen because we see no difference between the av and the tol. Okay. Can leave it over. We'll say it's a pirush. Okay, just that's an interesting question. It's either a pirush or a proof.
Right.
Question is there an nafkamina?
But I can see why I would
try to
lean more towards being a proof, because it's not being mefarish. It's proving from some existing facts. Or it's just bringing the existing facts and showing that they're the same. Why are they the same? Because you have an av, you have a tolda, and they both get a chatas. So it's not really explaining why they were like, but they're proving from other facts. So I get what you're saying.
I like it. Okay. So now what does the Gemara say here? Umay ika ben av letolda. What is that?
So this is the Shaila and the body. Oh, yeah. Yes, anybody.
Why anybody? Is there two sides here?
What?
Is there two sides? Are there two sides here?
No, sorry. So it's not the two sides. Jamaica and Avotalda. No, that's not. So it would be a Shaila.
Excellent. Simple Shaila. What is the difference between the av and the tolda? They're totally equal. Now, again, in the iyun, when we stop here, we say it's a very strange question. First, you tell me that they're totally equal. Now, you want to know what's the difference. Why should there be a difference, right? I mean, that's again, when you slow down and start thinking about it, you just told me they're totally equal. Why should there be a difference? You know what I mean? What type of question is this? What do you mean? What's the difference between there should be a difference? Who says there should be a difference? They're totally the same. But that's...
Then you don't need the concept of Avatolda.
Excuse me?
The Gemara understands that if they're the same, that's fine, but then you're really asking that what's the difference? Then there should be no need for a concept of Avatolda. So maybe this is not even, you put this as a shayla, maybe it's not a shayla, maybe it's a kasha. Maybe it's a pircha.
Okay, now you're again projecting us into a much deeper level of the discussion, which is on what basis do you call something an av, and what basis do you call something a tolda? Right. Now you've touched upon a very, very much more deeper point. Usually, simply speaking, the av is the primary case. In these cases, in the Zikin, for instance, those are the ones that are mentioned in the Chumash. And we're going to do derivatives from Psukim. But here we're going to have a little bit of a problem because there's only carrying fire mentioned in the rest of them are not. They're all learned from the Mishkan. Moshe blows the shofar to stop doing work in the Mishkan. So here we have a very, very serious question just to understand on what basis do you call something Av and what you call something a Tola. However, there are 39 Avos mentioned in the Mishnah, correct? There are 40.
Right.
And from those we're going to create Toldos, correct? So
right.
You just told me that there's no difference in din between the Av and the Toldos. So how can you, if there's no difference in din, so why do you ask me why is there, why should there be some difference between an Av and a, why should they be the same? I mean, in other words, what? Simply speaking, an Av is the classic case from which you derive the Toldo, correct? So
right.
the Toldo is always a derivative of some sort, which means that the Av has to be written, has to be in the Mishkan. It has to have, that's the source case. Now you're going to say there's something similar to it. Very nice. Okay? So that's a derivative. So the question is very, very unusual here, because why presume that there has to be something between an Av and a Toldo? It's very, it has to be explained. Okay? But whatever it is, it definitely is a question. Now we say nafka mina. The ilu of shtei avos b'haviyadani. If you do two avos together, inami shtei toldos b'haviyadani, ayva kol chada b'chada. If you do two avos together, kosed and lighting a fire, so then, or two toldos together, you're going to have two separate chiyuvim, two chatos if you do b'shogeg. That's going to do two chatos for the av, two chatos for the toldo. But here's a chiddush. The ilu avid av toldo b'day lo mechayev elachada. But if you do the av and it's toldo, you only bring one chatos. That's enough. The Rebbe Eliezer, the mechayev, had told him to come out, but Rebbe Eliezer doesn't have this rule. He says no, there's no difference whether you do the av and it's toldo, or two avs or two toldas. You have to bring two all the time. Amai korele av, amai korele tolda. Why is one called an av and one called a tolda? Mishkan chashive korele av. The ones that were important in the Mishkan we call avs. Mishkan chashive korele tolda. And the ones that are not significant in the Mishkan we call them toldas. Okay, that's the little section. Now we have to now go into the section and look at every part. First of all, nafka mina. What is that doing here? What's function is that?
That is the tshuva.
Right, correctly. That is the tshuva. Correct. Okay. It's not a pshitos. It's a simple tshuva. Excellent. Very simple. Okay. Now, the ilu avid shtei avos v'haryadade, inami shtei tolos haryadade, mechayev kol chada b'chada, the ilu avid av toldo b'day, lo mechayev elachada. What would you say that is?
So if the teretz is an nafkamina, the tshuva actually is a nafkamina, saying that the shayla was my ikamina. What is what is the difference? The answer is there is a difference. So now we have to explain the difference. So that would either be part of the tshuva or would be the pirush on the tshuva.
Yeah. So here I think is a parish on the tshuva. The tshuva is there. Actually, it's all one big. It's one big tshuva, and it's really as you say. The nafkamina really here is not like we said before. Nafkamina is not an answer.
Right. Doesn't stand right. Doesn't stand.
Really, the whole thing should be done. Technically, and another thing I have a problem with is making too many colors. I think it makes people crazy. So here I only highlighted the first few words, but really the whole thing is one big. The whole thing is one big tshuva.
Right.
Okay. Now, what about this with Rebbe Eliezer? He's mechayev the Toldo Makamav.
Right. So So it's not a kasha on the teretz because the teretz could still stand, and even the Rabbi Lezer holds you Mechayva told them Makamav.
Wait, excuse me? Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, yeah. Who's with us? Can you say your name?
This is Nassim Kialski.
Hi, Nassim. Good to hear your voice. I'm sorry, I didn't. You should have popped in before so we could have introduced you. Hi, Nassim. Yes.
I'm not quite sure, but it seems to me, according to Rabbi Eliezer, you really don't have an answer anymore. How could it? Why is this not why? I mean, once you have Rabbi Eliezer, wouldn't this be a kasha also?
Very good. Very good. According to the Chachamim, so we had an answer, but according to Rabbi Eliezer, there is no answer. You can't. It's not this answer, correct? This answer falls down according to him. So
right.
It's really a kasha according to him. It's not a kasha on the Rabbanan, for instance, that went before. They're allowed to hold what they want to hold. But it's a kasha to that teretz. It says you also have to explain. You also have to explain what's the difference between a nav and a told according to Rabbi Eliezer. You have to explain according to everybody, right? So it's really it's a kasha because it's not a sufficient answer to cover all the bases. That's one of the things that we mentioned before. A teretz has to be sufficient to cover all the possibilities. Here we say, wait a minute, it's a very nice teretz, but it doesn't solve all the problems. And for instance, the problem with Rebbe Eliezer it doesn't solve. Okay. Interesting enough, look what the Gemara does. It says, "Amai korele av, amai korele tolda." Okay. Notice what is that, by the way? First of all, just label it according to our first of all, we said this is a kasha. We said, okay. It's really a kasha on the it's really a kasha of what's the difference between nav and the told? There is none, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There is none. There is none. There is none. Now, for some reason, since there is none, you're in trouble, correct? Right. We haven't spelled out why, but it's a presumption here that if you have no nafkamina, you're in trouble. Okay, so we're asking you a very difficult kasha. Again, these things have to be done a little more in Ian to actually determine what is the difficulty, and people are also bothered about this thing itself. But let's label it as a kasha. Okay. All right. But look what went on here. Look what it says. My core lab and my core told them. Okay. Excuse me, let's put that down there.
Yeah,
so now, what's the answer?
It's all one time from Rabbi Eliezer all the way till the end is one kasha. Amai korele av, amai tolda.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So what's this? Hachtahavim Mishkan. What is that?
So that would be a yishuv.
Exactly. It's a yishuv. It's a yishuv. Okay. That's surely what it is. It's a yishuv. Okay, we'll put it at the end of the whole business there. Okay. But notice that the question was changed too. All these things are when you see things clearly like this, you really begin to understand what the Rishonim are talking about. Okay, because now we change the question because there is no nafkamina. So now we change the question to why is something called an avnatola? What's the difference between saying that there has to be a nafkamina and that something is called an avnatola? What's the difference between those two? And why are we so concerned? It is a deeper level of the question is forcing us into. Okay, let's yeah. Go ahead.
But how is this a terrorist? Because it seems I don't see how it answers the original question. Just because we have different names for things, why does that answer the question of what's nafkamina?
Right. There's a presumption that there has to be something between an av and a tolda. We have to explain why does that have to be true. Doesn't an av just simply means the case we started from? Here, there's something bothering the Gemara that's unstated. It says, no, there has to be something significant, either halachic difference or a nomenclature difference. So I'm not going to give the answer to that question, but that's really where we have to now think, and we have to start opening up Meforshim, and we have to start getting involved, because we're hitting a very, very essential problem. The Rishonim are talking about it, by the way. We're not discovering it. We're discovering it ourselves, but it's very, very important. Okay. Now let's just, in the few minutes left here, I just would like to finish this little keter here. Gabi Tuma Tanan. Okay. We said there the Avis Tumas of the Sheres, Shechvat Zera, and the Tumas Mace. They told the same Lav Kiyotzi Behen. Okay. The other Gemara, again, tells us that it's, we could say there should be a Shaila here, really. Shaila is Ala Kiyotzi Ben Olam, and I would say that the tshuva here is that the issue is that they're not kiyotzi behen, and here is the raya. Okay, that's how I would break it down. I would say this is really a tshuva to a sheila that's unstated. Okay, that's how I would do it, and I would say this is a proof to that tshuva. Okay, that's what I'd like to say. Oops, I'll put it on the end there. And, oops. And here the Gemara says, Hachimai. In our cases, we have these two classical cases. So the Gemara restates the original question, because remember, this is all supposed to be done in the head. So the Gemara now says, Hachimai. Let's get back. We see that there's two categories of Toldos, some of them are not. And what about our case in Ezekiel? Okay, so comes along Rav Papa. What does he say? Omer Rav Papa. Yesh mehen kiyotzi behen, yesh mehen lav kiyotzi behen. What is that?
So that's part of the tshuva. Oh, what was the original thing? Was it an Abaye or a Shaila? I don't remember.
Aha, very good. Baruch Hashem, we have it here.
Right.
What was the original thing?
Original question was told us yes and lav kiyotzi behen. So that we said was an Abaye.
What was that?
Because it was an Abaye because it was
correct. Now all the way down here, we finally got back to it. Yeah. So what is this? If that's any boy,
Shitas.
What does it have to be?
Shitas.
Right.
Very good. Very good. That's what it is. Peshitas. The only thing that's boggling your mind is usually a Peshitas solves the original boya by going one way or the other way, right?
Right.
You know, just tell me they're all kiyotzi behen or lav kiyotzi behen. This is very interesting. Peshitas. It says, you know something, there's a third possibility. What's the third possibility? We never talked about it. There's no universal rule. Some of them go like the Shabbos paradigm, and some of them go like the Tumah paradigm. So it's a very interesting Peshitas. A Peshitas that doesn't really solve all our problems. Now the Gemara is going to go into a very long parish of Rav Papa, because he made a statement now which ones are which and which ones are like Shabbos, which ones are not. So that's the next whole nice piece of this Gemara. Okay? So Baruch Hashem, we had a little bit of practice. Maybe we could arrange after we get into the Sefer more, that we have some more practice, and you should now be trying to do this yourself. It's very, very nice that we have this digital stuff. You can work very easily with it, just in Word. Doing nothing very fancy. Okay, you don't need all the numbers and everything either, as long as you carefully structure the Gemara, and then ask yourself, okay, what is the Gemara doing? Okay, and that's stage one. So if there's not any other questions at this point, we'll say goodbye to everyone. And next week, we're going to start with Mamarim. And we're now going to understand how are statements built. And he's going to go through the 11 flavors of statements. So now we're able to go back here again and say, now wait, what type, when it said Arba, Abbas, and Zekin, what type of statement was it? And we're going to find out why. You know, something's called a mute. What's a mute? It's Av, Aus, and Zik, and it's not 11 or 13. Came to a mind. Okay, so we're going to find all different flavors now of statements, and we're going to start building with them, and Baruch Hashem will be able to get a very clear idea of the mechanics of the Gemara, and that'll propel us into some very, very good questions and clear thinking. Okay, it was great being
This
with
is a lot of
you.
fun. It was very good.
Yeah. Baruch
Thank
Hashem.
you
I think
very
it's a
much.
fantastic tool for learning and for teaching. Things that that confuse people all the time, and rightfully confuse people, can be clarified through this very, very simple method. So we should have a bracha tzlacha that Klal Yisrael gets the hanoah of understanding the Gemara together.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good week. Have a Shavuot Tov. Good luck.
Kol tov.
You would tell all the